All right, what up, though? So, welcome back, and I think it's apropos at the airing of this. Happy New Year! So, 2026, we're in it. It's here, man. It's a beautiful thing. I'll just speak for myself that each year you're able to get blessed with another is remarkable. And whatever God, stars, universe, whatever you believe in that allows you to continue matriculating, you got to just say thank you, man. And I say thank you because 2026, man. 2026. I was born in 1981. I said so 19 in front of my age. Let you know I got some years on me, right? But it's an awesome thing, man, to just keep on having the opportunity to celebrate and go into another um, time period and evolve hopefully well and go from there. So with evolving well and going on into the next, into the next, into the next year, I want to talk to you real quick about something I've been pondering for the past, I want to say maybe 6, 7 months aggressively, but the idea of tradition versus principles. And I'm saying tradition versus principles, even though they um, coalesce very well and go together very well. I think, was it's kind of like the chicken before the egg or egg before chicken. Which one is it? Or is it nature versus nurture or nurture versus nature? It's the same thing with tradition and principles. However, I do think that there is a way to start to take humanity where we can be more united in a way where we can work together, amalgamate our energies better so we can flourish, especially with, sentient beings and augmented reality and AI and everything that's going on with technology advancing as it should. There are, the conspiracy theorists out there. There are those who see the horror of something new that's unknown. Like I always tell you guys, see the glass more half full than I see it half empty. But the reason why I see it more half full than half empty, or more optimistic than I am pessimistic about circumstances, is because I believe we have the ability to evolve and grow well, and we have the ability to pivot perspective and thought because we're not, inanimate objects that cannot, move or have feeling or have thought or have development. So I think we do this by pontificating and then, discussing and breaking down basic thought actions and then take proper actions in sequential order. And then we can make the change we're looking for. So to start that process, to pontificate on what I've been talking about and in my own mind and through research that I've been doing and different books I've been reading and bringing up in order to go deeper into history and not only American history, but universal worldly history, as I am speaking to you right now from Indonesia, having been here now going on 5 months, 4 or 5 months now in this part of the world. Well, technically in this particular country, but in this part of the world for almost now, I want to say 9 months, 8 or 9 months, majority of my travels so far this past year. So let me get to my point. Tradition versus principles and where my thought is going. And I would love to hear feedback from what you think about where I'm going with this. So I think a lot of what we do as individuals, as we're born into cultural understanding and societal norms, we're born into a tradition that we end up perpetuating more than we do principles of life and standard, even though principles are part of tradition, depending upon, whatever tradition you may have, there are elements of fundamental principles that the traditions are based off of, but in my personal observation, have, like all traditions over humanity, have waned away from the core value and principles of why the traditions had started in the first place. So what am I speaking to? So traditions are like your religious, your social norms, your cultural adherences of how you behave, how you act, how you go about living life, right? So if you're born, in my case, I'm a Black American man, born into a Christian household. So I have the tradition of, historically Black thought, Black American thought of understanding traditions based upon, what my ancestors may have eaten, being, brought in from slavery and, pig's feet, different things that we would eat that became tradition based off of the only thing that we can get. So it became, what our families over time, over generations said, okay, during Thanksgiving, we might eat this, or during certain holidays that we celebrate, again, based off of tradition, Thanksgiving, Christmas, based off of more religious tradition of being Christian, right? These are all traditions, right? Celebrating Thanksgiving, New Year's, Easter, Christmas, Easter, those type of things based off of tradition, right? Um, the religion, Christianity as a whole, is supposed to be based on the principles of Christ, which is, love thy neighbor, treat your parents with respect, don't cover thy neighbor's wife, this type of thing, right? So, spiritual principles based off of the doctrines and teaching of Jesus Christ, but have merged with tradition, right? Celebrating his birthday, Christmas, right? That type of thing. Thanksgiving is more of a cultural thing, right? For US, right? Where, celebrating the Columbus finding America, which we understand, again, tradition. That's why I say tradition and principle, two different things, right? Even when it comes down to even religion, because you talk about, when you get into the real depths of Christianity, crusades happen, right? That type of thing, to go deeper into more of the atrocities. But this is why I say tradition has waned away from the base of principle over humanity, because humans have taken it over in order to create what they want to create from it, right? And use it to leverage, either out of fear or mainly out of fear or manipulation of the masses, to control, conduct, and to guide and to steer the masses. So that's why tradition, and I'm kind of merging all this kind of quickly, if you will, but I feel has not even I feel, but like I said, I observed throughout history has morphed more into the, I like to say the term browbeating, to where it becomes at a certain point Stockholm syndrome, to where ipso facto a Stockholm syndrome style of, uh, this is what I've been kind of born into. So my captor, not captor Stockholm syndrome from the negative side of it, but more so my guidance, or my leaders who have guided me in thought, even my, parental guidance. I don't step outside of that, because to do so would be to be what we say disrespectful, not paying homage to the predecessors, respecting them for what they laid the foundation for. This is how I feel like we have gotten more into the Stockholm syndrome style of it, where it's like we have. That's why I say browbeat too. We say these things if you choose to divert from tradition. Whereas if tradition is meant to be more principle centric, as long as you keep the values and the ethics of the principles, I don't see how you can be disrespectful or not paying homage to the root of the purity of the tradition, if that's what it's about. Even though you may not practice, say, the actual traditional, celebration, putting the Christmas tree, for an example, in Christmas time, or the holiday itself, you might still send out a Christmas tweet or text or whatever, say Merry Christmas, but you might not be the one to put up a tree or to have lights. Does that mean you're not traditional? Does that mean you don't respect the principle of it? If you've taken that day off and you are acknowledging that it's the birthday of an individual that the world has proclaimed as, or those who believe in that, excuse me, not the world, but those who believe in that particular uh, religious dogma. If you're saying that you respect the fact that that's his birthday, then to me, you're keeping the principle of it, right? But you're just not following the overall tradition. And so to me, the observation that I'm recognizing is, what is it that's more important? Is it the principle or is it tradition? So again, going back to principle is more of a universal accepted truth, right? Of ethics and morality. That's what principle is if you were to look up the definition, right? Or if you were to understand what principles really are. And this is why I'm saying, from my observation, I feel like over humanity, we have gone more towards the adaptation and the ease of forcing individuals and people and family members and, cultural extended family, forcing them to stay so homogenous to tradition instead of focusing on, are the principles, the universal principles of what we're trying to exude and be as human beings, is that taking more precedent, and should it take more precedent, especially, like I said, with the advent of more aggressive pushes in technology that seemingly have the capability to potentially take over, if you will, the human, paradigm, flesh and blood human, right? And again, we're ways off from that. I'm not trying to go into the scientific horror side of it, but there is the reality, right, of the seeming reality of, again, we're creating something so powerful. Where do we have our foothold? And I think if we don't unite and have a uniform approach as humans, the 7.9 billion, 8 billion people that are on this planet, we are going to continue to have difficulty, and major difficulty, at a time where we probably don't have the time to have the difficulty of not being united and being one, people. So this is why I say it's imperative that we think about these seemingly benign uh, and thoughts of philosophy of behavior, because when we start to break them down and really take heed to, how are we behaving? How are we responding? Because it's remarkable to me, in 2026, we still have war. If we seem to be and feel like we're so evolved, we got smartphones, for Christ's sake, right? You can fly, private jets, and we've made missions, attempts now to, get to Mars through SpaceX and different, companies. You have companies now being evaluated at $1 trillion evaluations, and, and earnings in that. And we're supposed to be so modern, but yet we still have people dying over disagreements of land and tradition of, you're not this religious doctrine or sect, or you're not this tribe, or you're not, you wronged us in this way and we're trying to take power this way. And so even if you're shooting someone with a drone, or airstrikes, it's still war. And that's why I say, when you say tradition versus principle, I think we really need to take a deep dive into what has more relevance and value to us as humanity in order for us to take that next step forward. Is it easy to go into the thought of bringing out more morality and universal principles? No, it's not. It's evident that it's not. Hence why we still have war, because tradition, like I said before, we have insidiously, and not even trying to, we have perpetuated the cultural growth and evolution of one's sect, culture, or people by sustaining and reinforcing the thought. Like I said, if I'm born into a Black family, which I am, the general, not saying this is what my parents said, but I'm just saying the general consensus is, Black male, you're going to marry a Black woman. If you were born, Seventh-day Adventist Black, you're going to marry a Seventh-day Adventist Black. If she's Muslim, Jewish, or anything else, no, you can't do it. And so, because, and why? Not just because, and then there is this element of, well, you're not equally yoked, right? In biblical terms, or you're not equally of the same mind. But my question always is, are you really not of the same mind? Because just because you as Seventh-day Adventists may only go to church on Monday and you go to church, but if your son who's black wants to marry a Islamic woman who is more gold tone and more straight hair than curly hair, just because she prays 3 or 4 or 5 days a week, does that make her totally different than you? Does that make her more spiritual than you, or than him, or does that make your son more spiritual than him because he prays once a week and he claims that his God is the true God and hers is just an apostle or whatever it might be? Again, those go back to tradition, born into a thought of what generationally has been prescribed for this particular culture or this particular group of people. Not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying, though, if it's not benefiting society to be able to merge and keep humanity growing forward, not just the preservation of the ideology or the preservation of the tradition, because if the understanding of the principle is we're mankind, we all came from Cro-Magnon, the first people on the planet. We all came from that technically, as far as the actual human being. What the belief system that has been brought into was developed over time, depending upon wherever you were in the world, wherever you were, regionally. That was what that particular belief system, but we're all the same. I always go back to, if I cut you, you bleed red. Because once that blood hits the air, it's blue in your veins, but once it hits the air, it turns red, right? Because you're human, right? If you drink water, you have to urinate. If you feel that your emotions get hurt, you get sad. If you feel like emotions get happy, you get happy, right? That's humanity. So what principles and traditions that govern us, no matter if I'm in America or if I'm in Turkey or if I'm in the Netherlands or if I'm in, Iran, what governs us all is the principle of humanity. And how can we universally coexist and function in a way where we can all move forward? I think we get so enamored, I think, again, I observe that we get so enamored with preserving their traditions that had its place at one point in society and in our evolution as human beings. But moving forward, from what I'm observing that's here now and what's coming down the pike, it seems to me we need another evolution as a people to unite in order to move forward systematically, effectively, and efficiently. And so I urge us to break down the thought of tradition versus principles, which one or both, but how do we make these become, and which one do we use to make more of a united front as humanity, not so much the separation that we've been delivering to ourselves over the past, millennia since we've been here, whatever it might be. So I want to just pose that to you as a thought. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you think I'm saying, because again, I've been pondering this for a little while. I just really want to get an idea of what you think. Is it more important to have tradition or principles? How do you think we're going to evolve well as people, not as sects or regions of the world or cultures or religions? How are we going to evolve as people in this next phase of humanity going forward? All right. Share your thoughts with me, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. Again, I say Happy New Year. However your tradition was that you celebrated, the principle is enjoy your life, man. If you're still here and you're able to hear this, not in the ether of space, but you're physically able to hear this. It's a beautiful thing to be here. And I am I am honored and happy and appreciative to the powers that be to give me another year. And I already know whatever time I have while I'm here, I'm going to make it the best that I can, even if it's just having this conversation. So I appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon. Make sure y'all comment and let's talk. Let's grow together. Live well, live well. I'll talk to you guys.